The first round of the 2023 NHL draft is complete, and there's still all kinds of trades that we're waiting to see happen. All kinds of rumors going on. We're going to discuss all the latest regarding a variety of NHL teams. Plus, we have another big signing that occurred right before the draft in Vegas as well. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we still have a lot of NHL trade rumors to discuss here after the first round of the NHL draft is now complete. But first I want to get started with a signing that we didn't have time to get into a video earlier, and that's the Vegas Golden Knights re-signing Ivan Barbashev, who they acquired at the NHL trade deadline and was an absolute terrific fit. He signs a 5-year contract extension at $5 million per season. I honestly thought if he went to the open market, he might even get more than that, maybe closer to $6 million. Barbashev, typically he's been a bottom six player for a large part of his career. Obviously, it was a big part of the Blues Stanley Cup win a few years back, and then 2 years back had a nice breakthrough season offensively. Obviously, this year the Blues didn't have a lot of success and were dismantling the team, moving some pending unrestricted free agents out, and he found an absolute perfect spot in Vegas on a line with Jack Eichel and Jonathan Marchessault. So arguably the top line in the NHL playoffs. Vegas' top line for sure, all helping them go all the way to the Stanley Cup. So certainly it was a player they wanted to keep, and they actually traded away longtime Golden Knights, 6 years, an original misfit, Riley Smith, earlier to make the salary cap space to sign Barbashev. Smith was making $5 million himself, so the money in and money out scenario was absolutely perfect between Barbashev and Smith. Of course, Vegas also has the benefit of the no state tax, so certainly you can make a little bit less there and still end up with a similar amount of money in your pocket as compared to some other NHL destinations. So great signing there in Vegas. And as I mentioned, for the first time since 2007, we get through all the way the round one of the NHL draft completed with 0 trades, not even a draft pick swap or a case of a team moving up in the draft or a team moving back and getting extra assets. That itself is extremely common. It happens all the time. Last year, we had a couple of big blockbuster deals, including like Kirby Dach, Alex DeBrincat. Chicago was wheeling and dealing, getting back in the first round. And we just didn't see that this year. And the general consensus from a lot of the teams was that the draft is such a deep draft, and they were so content to take the players that were available to them that they didn't want to move the picks. So it's just that simple. Even the St. Louis Blues had 3 first-round selections, and we're thinking most people thought they would probably only use 1, maybe 2, trade at least 1, maybe 2, and they ended up using all 3. Either way, though, deep draft, lots of talented kids were selected, but no trades. Now we're getting ready now for the day 2 of the draft, where we see rounds 2 through 7. So because there was no activity, you have to think that activity is going to pick up. There's all kinds of players around the NHL, all kinds of teams have players that they need to move. So something is going to have to happen. We're bound to get the floodgates to get opening here soon. And here's what the latest rumors are from what we're hearing from NHL insiders that are at the draft getting all the latest intel. So first up, the Pittsburgh Penguins of Kyle Dubas. Of course, we know he made his first selection as the new, I guess he's not really GM, but president of the team. We also learned actually quickly with the Penguins as well that Jason Spezza, even though he's been hired as an assistant GM, that he can't actually take part with actual Penguin activities business-wise until after July 1st. So he cannot take part in the draft in the first part of free agency. So he will not be helping Dubas just yet. But they're looking to move Jeff Petry. Obviously, that would be a huge help cap-wise. We saw them obviously pick up Riley Smith from Vegas. Certainly helps with their depth on the wings for sure. I think Riley Smith can help there. Some think that maybe acquiring Smith means that Jason Zucker won't be coming back or re-signing, and that maybe could happen, but it's also not a given. Kyle Dubas spoke to that. He was asked about the draft, and it's not a foregone conclusion that Zucker's not returning. They're still trying to figure things out, and they're very interested in keeping him still. And I think moving a contract like Petry and obviously reorganizing their blue line, saving some money there, is a way that they're likely going to try to do it. Of course, they also have to sort out their goaltending with Tristan Jarry being a UFA. It's not clear if he's returning as well. I'm not sure that they're going to go in that direction. So we don't know. There's still some big question marks there in Pittsburgh. But Jeff Petry is a contract they're trying to unload There was some talk about maybe them sending him to the San Jose Sharks. I don't know if that's something that's going to materialize or not, but look for them to continue to try pushing that front. The New York Islanders are another team to watch. They still want to move Josh Bailey, of course. They need some cap space to do some more things and try to make improvements on Long Island. Lou Lamoriello made it clear that Bailey was likely going to be done and trying to find a place for him to go to have a bigger role and play more regularly. Chicago is a potential landing spot. They're still in a situation where they can afford to take on salary and have some NHL veteran spots on the roster. So certainly, that's a possibility. The Islanders might also look to move Ross Johnson. That's a possibility too. Lou had spoken to his kind of lack of taking a bigger role. When Johnson was signed, I guess they were kind of thinking he may take over for Matt Martin, because Matt Martin was dealing with some injuries and stuff, and they weren't sure how he was going to progress through the remainder of his career. But he's actually done a lot better than expected. So certainly Johnson's role has not been to the extent they ever expected when they signed him to that deal. So it is possible you could see Bailey and Johnson move out of there to find some cap space. Hard to say. There's not a lot of teams that are going to take players like that on, but I do wonder about a team like Chicago. There was apparently a lot of rumblings around the NHL draft floor in Nashville and round one about the young prospect goalie in the Preds organization, Yaroslav Askarov, being available. We know Barry Trotz made it clear. He did interviews confirming that he tried everything, trying to move up in the top 5 of the draft, and he's been trying for weeks, and it just has not materialized. Those teams that had those higher picks were quite content to hold on to them because of the players that were available, so therefore the prices were just way too high to really make the move. But Askarov is a player who's obviously, you could say some people are really high on him, some are not so sure yet. But he's still young. Obviously, was a first-round pick a couple of years back. Had a chance to play another season in Russia. He's got a full pro season in North America under his belt now. Looked pretty good, in Milwaukee. I do wonder if teams that are looking for either, backup or starting goaltenders will consider this. I know there was some talk that if they're going to pull off a bigger deal, that he may be a key piece moved, and part of that, I know they were linked to Alex DeBrincat. We'll see. That was one of the teams that were a potential landing spot for him. I don't know if that's a piece that the Senators would want in return or not, but we'll see what happens. But the Preds are still trying to be busy, and that's the main name on the roster right now that's been mentioned. Talking about DeBrincat, no deal there as of yet. Nothing appears to be anywhere close. Pierre Dorian did speak to the media and said that essentially he's not trading DeBrincat for pennies on the dollar. So it sounds like the offers are just not there. Obviously, when he made comments, I think it was about a day or so ago, saying he did not expect to get back into the first round of this draft. It kind of caught a lot of people by surprise, because a lot of people expected a DeBrincat deal to be done, and that a first-round pick in this year's draft would most likely be part of the return, and that never came to be. So certainly, right now, the latest reports from Ottawa and the local media indicate that he's more focused on trying to get a trade done where they can bring back a comparable player or somebody who can play a top 6 role and hopefully give them similar production. Like I know Travis Konecny comes to mind, for example, in Philadelphia. I don't see the Flyers wanting to break it, but that kind of player who's been rumored to be on the market out there. I know a lot of fans have been, doing some mock trades and suggesting a 3-way deal even between the Sens and the Flyers and a third team to end up whoever that third team could be for DeBrincat. And then they get connected to the Sens with the third team, with the Flyers getting draft picks and prospects from both clubs. I mean, that type of deal could work, but we'll see. That is probably the type of deal that Dorian's looking for, but as of right now, nothing appears to be close. We'll have to wait and see. At this point, things can always change, and they can change very quickly, but it's sounding more and more like we might even see DeBrincat sign his 1-year deal and return to Ottawa for another season. They can always move him later. There's really no rush. There really is not. He has to get this right and make sure that he doesn't give him away for pennies on the dollar. So I'm not sure we're going to see DeBrincat trade as quickly as we might have first thought. Likely still happens soon, like soon-ish, but it's hard to say how quickly it all comes together. The Carolina Hurricanes apparently also on the market shopping Brett Pesce. Sounds like contract negotiations on an extension there haven't gone the way they were hoping, and not quite lining up to what they want to pay. So they are exploring the trade market. Not a huge shocker there. We know Carolina will not overpay players, when they have negotiations for either extensions or if players are expiring, they ultimately say, listen, this is what we value your what services at, take it or leave it. That's just how they do business there, and it seems to work well for them. But Pesce is on the market. I wouldn't be surprised if they are going to move him, if they try to bring back some kind of a top scoring forward. They still need one more game breaker there, I believe, in Carolina. I wonder if that's what they'll try to do with Pesce. A name to watch. Montreal, another team to watch as well. All kinds of players there that could find themselves on the move. They still have a big glut enough forwards that need to move. With the addition of Alex Dufour that came yesterday, the role for Christian Dvorak has gone even smaller. There's really no room for him in the lineup, and he just doesn't seem to have a spot or a role with the organization at this point. So I'm going to expect Dvorak to be moved. They're unfortunately going to probably have to take a big loss on that one compared to give up a first rounder for him to the Coyotes last year with before I guess the last year Bergevin was leading the team. So we'll see what happens, but he needs to go to find a proper kind of refresh for his career too, and the team needs the roster spot. They're still looking to move guys like Armia, Hoffman, Joel Evans's name is out there. It's just Evans is getting some interest from what I've seen before, but guys like Hoffman or Armia just not getting a lot of interest out there. They're going to be tough deals to find. There's not a lot of teams that can take money on. It seems like Chicago was one of the few, and they're only going to take so many. So we'll see. But Montreal Canadiens are certainly bound to be busy for sure. We also have word that the Winnipeg Jets I was still having conversations around Hellebuyck, Scheifele. Wheeler buyout seems to be more likely how that's going to end. And that could happen here in the next day or two before the June 30th deadline for the window of buyouts to close here. But Scheifele and Hellebuyck has kind of cooled, especially with Hellebuyck. A lot of teams were interested in the beginning when they first kind of found out for sure that he was available. But now they know what he likely wants on an extension. He's looking for big money, over $9 million. And not to say that he's not worth it. Guys like Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky are already that kind of money. And he feels he's just as good in that conversation for the Vezina all the time. And he's not really wrong. But there's not many teams out there that can really afford to do that either. And considering there's a lot of goalies on the market between UFA and trade, it's kind of causing things to go slow. So we'll see. I'm not sure how quickly we'll get a resolution in Winnipeg, but Scheifele and Hellebuyck deals might take longer than expected here. We already talked about the Ottawa and DeBrincat. We'll see what else they do there. They're expected to move Alex Formenton, but that's likely going to take some time where he was on that 2018 World Junior team. We're not expecting a full reported announcement on what the findings were probably till sometime later in July, but I've heard from Ottawa media numerous times in the last couple of weeks here that they're expected to move him at some point before next season, but I'm not sure that's going to happen here for a little while. It's still a name to watch here over the course of the season. Now, of course, I want to talk about the Maple Leafs as well. Obviously, they're a team that's going to be very interesting to watch. They have a lot of open roster spots because they've had such a big turnover in their bottom six for the last number of years, the way their team is structured salary-wise. We saw them keep the 28th overall pick in the first round. There was a pick that was rumored to be available if they could get a player back that they could, plug into the lineup and help them right away. And that never came to be. They certainly went off the board with a pick that was, a player that was, by many projected to be second, third rounder. So interesting to see how that works out. But I know with the comes to the Leafs, one name to watch is going to be closely here to be interesting is William Nylander. According to Tree Living in his interviews he's done, he said on the Matthews and Nylander contract fronts that he needs clarity on the situations by July 1. Doesn't absolutely need to have a case where they're both signed, sealed, and delivered as soon as they're eligible to sign extensions, but he certainly needs clarity to know where things are going. I know nobody expects Matthews to say he's not signing and to leave as a UFA next year. That's not expected. Although I've seen more reports today saying it's definitely going to be a contract 3 to 5 years. He's not going to do a long-term deal, a 7-8 year deal like a lot of fans would like to see, unfortunately. When it comes to Nylander, though, the report from Elliot Friedman said that they really want to keep him under $9 million, like probably in an 8.5 to like 8.8, 8.9 range. And he said it's going to be a real wrestling match to get that done. A couple of things, obviously, it sounds like Nylander in their camp are looking for more money than that. I've seen some reports that are Toronto media thinking that he was looking for 9.5, 10. We don't know if that's actually accurate or not, but certainly it appears to be a good gap there between what the Leafs would like to see and what he and his agent Louis Gross would like to see, which is a problem. Secondly, you would think that these two negotiations are kind of pretty well interconnected. Matthews is not going to want to probably commit until he knows the future of Nylander, because certainly he wants to know what the team is going to be like. So one, having an impact on each other in that sense. And when it comes to Nylander, he probably wants Matthews' deal to get done first, so he knows just how close to his teammate that he's going to be salary-wise. These guys have all kind of played off each other between him and Matthews and Marner, and wanting to know, like, I guess, comparing themselves to each other in a sense when it comes to their salary. So to me, it makes a lot of sense that one's going to go hand in hand with the other. And if the problem here, though, is it sounds like if the Leafs don't get a good clarity situation and are not confident that they're going to get the Nylander contract where they want it to be in the next few days here before July 1, it sure sounds like a Nylander trade is the most likely outcome. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to happen for sure. It could drag on a little bit. It doesn't mean it's going to happen on July 1st or happen right away either. But it just means that there's some, I think they're getting to the point where there's some concern that they're not going to get that contract where they want it to be. And that's what they need to have by July the 1st. They don't have to have deals done. I think they're comfortable with Matthews. I'm just not sure how comfortable they are with Nylander, given the history and how the last negotiation went, given the history and how Egypt tends to operate. And, certainly, they got to get their dollars and cents in line here so they have the option to do other things. But like I said earlier, when they signed David Kampf to a 4-year deal at $2.5 million, I thought that was kind of rich. So if they're giving out rich contracts to your fourth-line center, what are you going to give to Nylander or Matthews? I don't know. To me, it's not good management when it comes to your cap situation, in my opinion. I think Kampf's a nice player. I think he's a good fit there. I really like the player when he brings. I just think they overpaid him. And it's not his fault. He was able to get the money. Good for him. But, 4 years is too much for a bottom six players. And $2.5 million when he's getting a $1 million raise on his last contract with hardly producing any offense. That's just not typically how things go. So I'm not an overly big fan of the contract. I do like the player. I think they could have got better opportunity at 2 or 3 year deal at maybe 1.75 or something like that. That would have been a much more fair contract, in my opinion. So we'll see. But these Nylander Matthews connected deals are getting to a point where we're going to need to know a bit where they're heading. And if Trey Living doesn't know, I do seriously wonder if we could see a Nylander deal. It certainly would be a ton of interest around the league. So be curious to see how it all plays out. Stay tuned. As I said, rounds 2 through 7 here coming soon. And we'll hopefully have some of these deals come together as well. And we'll update the rumor mill here as everything comes to be. So if you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, analysis of the 2023 NHL draft and beyond. July 1st, free agency signing season, as they call it, not far away as well. So stay tuned. We'll keep you up to date here on all the ongoings around the entire league. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.